FTV Channel 26 in San Francisco.
Pay attention, O you monks. I hold in my hand the broken wing of an angel.
In this picture, the boys had asked her to play. She felt chosen and honored, just as she does now, but fixed as a target in their eyes.
This image is bound to be misinterpreted. The rapists among you will take it to mean that all women are inherently provoking, not just of sexual encounter or love, but actual attack. This is not true.
When she went to kindergarten, she did not cry and felt superior contempt for those who did. Instead, this was a new place to discover. She ran around joyfully kissing all the boys, for she loved them. But her parents were called in, and she was told to play in the sandbox. There is no one way to look at all of this. On the one hand, she was bewildered, and on the other, she was stimulated. To be sure, she was not prepared for, nor did she want overt sexuality until she solicited it. And sometimes she tried. The boy next door one day was rumored to be kissing all the girls in the excavated basement of the house being built nearby. She literally ran up there hoping to be kissed too. They stood in a shy and confrontational standoff, and he backed away. So what I want to say is, either invite me up here and kiss me, or don't invite me at all. What are you guys doing? Hey, what am I doing here? Hey, what do you want? Hey. The man was taking her picture for the cover of the school magazine. He had her posing in various ways. Then he gave her the scarf and told her to put it behind her head and raise her arms and smile. He had a funny tone in his voice when he asked, like he was treading on thin ground and he knew it. She felt a little odd about it and wondered what he was doing. It was published. What are you guys doing? Hey, what am I doing here? Hey, what do you want? Hey. She was invited to be either a cheerleader or a flag twirler. Her parents said absolutely not to the cheerleading, as the girls wore their dresses too short. She was ashamed and embarrassed because they were so square, and because it was so important to her to be in. But if they let her twirl flags, that was okay, only they wore band uniforms. Still, it was one of the most thrilling and exciting things she ever did. A sort of absolute ecstasy overtook them the minute the drum cadences began, especially down in the tunnels under the Rose Bowl, where the sound would reverberate incredibly. It was an erotic ecstasy, a celebration of the joy of that drum. 30 years later, she was told, by one of her father's friends that he went to those games just to see her.
Hey, what am I doing here? Hey, what are you guys doing?
She loved your games and wanted to play them with you in due time. No one ever asked about her fantasies. In high school, she went out with various boys in an appropriate sequence, each time growing in her awareness of what it meant to relate to men. She was interested and scared, but really wanted to know how to relate. She noticed that some girls were whispered and snickered about and thought to be bad. She did not know what that meant, but noticed that those girls seemed more earthy and sensuous than the rest, although she did not even know those words yet. Finally, she asked her current boyfriend if he knew why Dorothy was considered bad and others not. What did Dorothy do that made her bad? He said, "Do you want me to show you?" She said yes. He began to unbutton her blouse and undo the catch on her bra, and he played with her breasts, briefly. For as soon as she found out that Dorothy let boys touch her body, she fastened her bra and buttoned her blouse and said, "Thank you." It was a research project. Her parents told her to give up her boyfriend on the grounds that he wasn't good enough for her. Read, sex is wrong and questionable. Read, they want her under their control. She decided she was tired of being a good girl and went after men for real.
She lay on the bed, gazing at his face. She had worn the black underwear she thought he'd like and was wildly turned on. He stood there for an instant, unable to appreciate what she'd done for him, or playing the game of control by denial. Why don't you say anything?
Apparently, her eroticism was more developed than his, or rather the needs of the two were at odds, and they could not speak of it. They had never learned to talk. In her isolation and despair, she went into therapy to learn at last to tell what it was she wanted. From then on, after a great deal of pain, it was better, and eventually almost always good. It goes so slowly, and there is so much to learn.
You are monks who live in a private fantasy. You don't allow negotiation or different points of view, only denial of the other. All you men who dream never tell. You feel but never share, and you demand but never ask.
By this photo, she was divorced, and for the first time in her life really out in the world on her own. What she experienced was the horrifying feeling of being treated as available, and with no protection of family, husband, or even friends in a world without apparent rules of behavior. Hey, why don't you say anything?
She decided she wanted to be the initiator in events some of the time, and she learned to ask for what she wanted. She learned to ask someone to make love to her when she wanted him to. She is tired of sex or love being so confused, and of being a good sport or withholding or being bad or good. She is tired of having to justify and explain.
She wants you to love her back. I said love her. I said love her.
On the day when the human being first touches spirit, he loses his violent nature and his willingness to survive at any cost. He becomes more careful in his behavior towards God's creations. And finally, the best way to do away with evil is to make energetic progress toward the good.